The Civil War was the deadliest American conflict in history. It was sparked by the arguments of the use of slavery and overall rights and positions of African Americans throughout the nation. This war was not only started over the status of African Americans, but it was also deeply fought by them. Black people involved in the war helped the Union win in several ways, and it deeply transformed America for the future. However, the road traveled in order to obtain freedom was not easy. Even though the North were more accepting of black slaves, they were not necessarily fond of them. Many people in southern Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio were from the South and brought with them their prejudices against blacks. On top of that, Abraham Lincoln, at the beginning of the war in 1861, was not focused on freeing the slaves. He was more concerned with keeping the Union together, and in doing so he decided that the best way to keep southern border states to the north, such as Missouri, Kentucky, and Maryland, in the Union, was to not help the African American slaves. It took 2 years until the true Abraham Lincoln came out, and on January 1st of 1863, he freed the slaves of the rebellious states with the Emancipation Proclamation. The amazing breakthrough from the president wasn't perfect in that it still left slavery in loyal states. However, it gave hope to many throughout the nation for a better future. More importantly, it also allowed African Americans to join the Union Army, giving black people a prominent role in the Civil War and a chance to fight for the cause they believed in. One example of this was the 54th Massachusetts Infantry. It was the first all-black regiment. Even though they were incredibly outnumbered at the Battle of Fort Wagner and were defeated, they inspired several African Americans to join the fight. Before the war even began, African Americans were already prominent in politics, as they were working to free themselves from slavery. Some of the most influential people in the time included Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and Isaac Myers, who all worked for the well-being of minorities in the North. Frederick Douglass is arguably the biggest abolitionist of the time and worked non-stop by giving speeches such as The Hypocrisy of American Slavery and What to a Slave is the 4th of July. To change the public's viewpoint of slavery, as a runaway, he understood just how bad it was firsthand and wanted to end it for good. He also worked to gain rights for African Americans, such as the ability to vote and fight in the war. Harriet Tubman, also a runaway, helped other slaves escape from the Underground Railroad. She brought slaves up from the South to the North and changed many lives. Also, once the war started, she did a lot off the battlefield to benefit the Union. She worked as a spy for the Union and also helped heal wounded soldiers as a nurse. Even the smallest things had an impact on free African Americans during the Civil War period. Isaac Myers, a free black who lived in Northern Virginia, worked to allow better possibilities of African Americans. There in Virginia, several free African Americans after the war were not given the same paid job opportunities as whites. Through the 1860s and 70s, he fought for labor rights in Virginia and was able to gain more labor rights for African Americans, raising their wages and giving them more job opportunities during the Reconstruction and afterwards. These people made huge impacts, and the repercussions are prime reasons that led to the Civil War and helped during it. Because of their efforts, African Americans began to have more opportunities and eventually freedom. At the twilight of the war, the desperate Confederacy attempted to let slaves fight. However, this idea flopped, an expected outcome from the Union. By the end of the war, close to 180,000 African American men served as soldiers, and 3/4 of these were former slaves. Because of the war in 1865, the 13th Amendment was created and freed all African Americans, but it took several years for them to gain more rights, and many prejudices against them are still present today. However, the Civil War took the first crucial step in creating equality for black people, and has since changed America forever.